talking about common problems into the used cars, and when they getting older after 4 years of ownership from new. So cars are like anything else, I think misconception is to understand, to average consumer understand all the used cars are the same. That's how their problems, I think, start. Every used car is used, driven, abused, looked after, serviced, maintained, completely different manner, and by completely different expectations from the keeper, budget, finances available to that particular person, location where this particular individual lives, also where the vehicle has been serviced and maintained, which is again very difficult. Anyone can basically do very random basic stuff, and most of the time many issues are overlooked and they haven't even been rectified within the warranty period, especially the cars which are used for businesses, any purpose, mini cabin or short-term, long-term rentals, business leases, privates, that would apply slightly less because people tend to look after privately, who own them privately, who bought this lease to themselves. They will take a bit more care, but where the vehicle is like on a sacrifice salary schemes, all this nonsense, right? No one cares. They treat it as not theirs, so if there are some issues, they're not overlooked, because they're overlooked. They might say something to the main dealer, let's say, if it's in the warranty period, and because of inconvenience, and they're not always so helpful. If it's something very not very apparent, they will just say they can't find a problem, and because any mechanic, if something is broken, literally doesn't drive, you can find a problem, right? But when it comes to the main dealers, they all have franchises. They have master technicians got ego problems. It's just a classic thing. I've been there, I've worked it. I was apprenticeship, I've seen it. So when there's something like needs more visits, it just gets annoying, to trace something and to try prove you're right. There is a problem, because I explaining this from my personal experience with new cars, right? And where there is a problem, and it's whether they're playing dumb, or I think the biggest problem is because no one cares about consumer in the main dealers, right? Technically, no one gives a damn monkey about it, because everything what workshop mechanics worrying about are their productive hours, because they've been pressurized from the service manager. Everything is about productive hours sold, right? And when it comes to the warranty, not always things are straightforward, because they are in a battle against the manufacturer, right? If they can't find a complaint, if they spend too long on a vehicle, that's what they care about, not spending too long on a vehicle. They only get paid like an hour diagnosis fee. But there are situations which are non-box standard, like finding audible noises, where there is a material potential defect, which makes annoying noises and vibrations intermittently. That's where it becomes a bit of a problem, or some sort of latent fault which is not apparent. There is an issue, but it's not bringing fault, right? Or if they do something like a clutch judder test, where it's applicable by manufacturer for the, let's say, DSG gearbox. If it doesn't fail the specification, they ignore it, because what they're caring about, because the warranty, which is manufacturer, would not pay the franchisee for the repairs, for the labor, and for materials, right? So all this process is very inconvenient for the consumer, because everything what they worry about, so that franchisee gets paid from the manufacturer for those repairs, right? That is the one biggest problem in a trade, and always been, and more likely always been, until manufacturer will own workshops, and where technicians are allowed to spend more time on a user experience, to minimize user inconvenience, So therefore, certain issues, like even updates, they're not carried out all the time, at least for the average manufacturer, like maybe Mercedes and BMW will have, and Porsche, and I'm not talking about probably supercars, right, where there's a bit of the customer service slightly on different sort of level, I'm just saying, right? Well, not unless they just pretend, right, to, because where there's serious money floating around, people will bend over more than you going like Citroen dealership going in on a dash here, right? So what I want to say regards to that, I forgot. But yeah, that warranty period is crucial, right? So that's why it's important who had this car. So you as a buyer know when you're buying. You're not gonna, when you're buying a 10-year-old car, you're not gonna know who had it first 3 years, right? Unless there's one keeper, right? If there are 5 keepers, you ain't gonna know that, So unless there's some sort of traceability in regards to some invoices, and sort of, if there's a full main dealer service history, at least the car's been going there. But tracing from 10 years what happened in first year, and whether those issues being rectified within the warranty is kind of, I'm not saying it's impossible, but you're not going to spend so much money on forensic investigations, right? It's just not justifiable. But there is, especially when you're buying the car within a warranty period, it's not about the fault, it's about inconvenience. You don't want to, if there's something latent, or something weird, you just don't want to keep going in and out, bringing this car in, booking in, waiting 1.5 months to get a hire car, for them to look at 3-4 days, and they say can't find a problem. The noise is consistent with this particular make and model, which is just stupid, right? Only person who can say that, I'm just hypothetically speaking, is manufacturer, right? None of the mechanics, especially who work in a main dealer, can say that. They're not even authorized to do that, So there is problems. That's how they try to get away from situations, right? There's certain things I'm talking about personal experience dealing with stupid Kia, same as stupid like Hyundai, right? It's just, there are situations which are annoying, and the customer service is dreadful when they say, oh, you're gonna make because of the warranty, and they say they're starting to put under pressure. I'm sure I'm not the only one, right? I'm just the same as anyone else trying a new car and the car breaks down, right? And then they try to say you will have to pay for the judders, like clutch judder, right? What you been talking about? you sold somebody, you sold me a new car, and then you will sell me. You might not be covered in the warranty, right? And okay, it's one thing where somebody just mentions, right, politely, right, saying, look, if we will identify abuse, right, then that will not be covered. Right? It's the way how you say it, instead of saying, look, we already know it's a clutch plate and it's not going to be covered under manufacturer's warranty, even without taking, let's say, gearbox off. You know, that's just insane, right? That just shows, right, how it just shows you are a cowboy. You know, you're not interested. You're only interested about, you already prejudge what's going to happen without even taking, let's say, gearbox off. You know, but I've been given a lecture of basically there's no warranty already. I think it's just absurd, right? Unless they can prove it physically, right, by sending materials away to the laboratory, testing or doing forensics, right? Or unless you can see there's abuse, right, where it's a driver error, right? That's different, right? But again, how are you going to prove it? You know, it gets a bit challenging. So, I mean, obviously there are always somebody who will abuse something, right? And obviously you can tell there will normally be some sort of telltale signs. You know, now there is, every person has some sort of online profile. You can just Google name and surname and have a look. And if somebody would be completely unsensible, then more likely there will be videos how they're abusing the car, right? And there you go, you got evidence. But I mean, I'm not going to go into that detail. Normally a person, individual who purchased the car, you know, for 40,000-30,000, you know, for their own hard-earned money, highly unlikely is going to abuse it, right? But you never know. You know, someday you got parents bought a car, a teenager, and they just trashed this bloody car through the Tesco car park, right? You know, I'm not saying these things doesn't happen, they do. But so coming back to the constant problems, these how cars start inheriting across to this used car market, you know, when they exiting out from the manufacturer's warranty, you know. So that's why paramount is, before you get rid of the car, most of the people, like, if it's a business cars, and they would not care, especially if the car will go back and it's not going to be your car, no one gives a damn shit, right? But there is a fault or not really, especially if it's being a lease, it goes back, right? And that those cars are majority, right, who enters back into second-hand car market on average. Person who, let's say, buys cash or pays the balloon payment at the end, or just buy right out, they will normally keep the car at least for 5 years, you know, maybe even 6. Somebody might even, older generation will keep it like for 10 years, you know, where people just bought a car, keep it for a long time, you know. And then some might not ever even sell it, but now, because cars facelifts and repackaging happens every year, you know, consumer just goes and buys every new shining object, you know. And that's we are living in a consumer market, you know. Times, you know, where the new bling demand for new bling is high, right? And everyone wants to have a better car better than his neighbour's car, or better and bigger, it's just an event until you get to the boats, and then you get to the planes, then you get to the islands, it just never ends, absurdity never ends if you compete in that sort of manner. And then watches, it just never ends. But so coming back to these car problems, electrical faults, which some weird ones, like solar sensors for the cruise. For the climate control. Also the misting thing, which automatically is the sensors which comes on. It's just silly things, if you're buying a 5-year-old car, 10-year-old car, it doesn't matter. It's a satisfaction quality car. If you want to do it, right? You don't. If no one would tell you that, you wouldn't even know. You wouldn't even know it works or doesn't. It's just a climate control comes on automatically, right? And the mist, you don't even notice it. If it doesn't even work, you would not even notice it. So potentially some communication issues which can lead to some module failures, or some module failure leads to communication issues. And all the main dealers, they work on a rule. They would not look at an issue like bulletins unless the user complains about it, right? If there can be audible noises, they will even leave it, even there is a bulletin, unless user complains about it. So some obviously safety recalls, that's different. They have to notify the DVSA, I think the DVSA, yeah, about this, if there is any recalls, safety recalls, and they have to make public, obviously with the recalls there's not really a term when you can do it, as long as the car is under warranty. It was under warranty, it was in that space, and the recall comes on the 6th year of car, or 5th year, maybe even 10th year they discovered something. That will be done as a goodwill, free of charge. So the recalls normally works like that. That's not a big deal. They will be made aware, and you can fix it free of charge. There's some different, some sort of service bulletins. Obviously I would expect the franchisee should be acting on behalf of the manufacturer, and if there are any issues, they should be collecting these issues or audible noises, because there is a material defect, under thermal strain, when it gets too hot, too cold, So because none of the manufacturers manufactures all the powertrains and assemblies in the same factory. Those subsystems are usually manufactured by different companies. Like gearboxes mostly are manufactured for the manufacturer at ZF, right? ZF is a German company who manufactures gearboxes and Haldex clutches for all of the manufacturers, and manufacturers only change in specifications what they want, but the engineers say we need these sort of gear ratios, that sort of speed gearbox, and they manufacture these parts. Same as alternators, not like Kia or VW will manufacture the alternators manufactured by Weber. There was Lucas, Delphi, Bosch, right? So those big supply chain manufacturers will manufacture those items for the manufacturer and add in their branding on it, and they will fit those items to the car. So that means to supersede some failed part. It's a long stretch chain counter reaction by identified at the franchisee level, right, and then updating manufacturer, and then manufacturer collects the data how often these issues are paramount, and to identify whether that part needs to be superseded, and the manufacturer of that particular unit needs to be updated so they can change their manufacturing process of that particular part, which keeps failing or is noisy, right? Material defect. So that takes long time, you know. And obviously, where you would expect certain things, they are normally tested, right? But again, when you test things, most of the time it's audible noises. Obviously, it's been done on a bench where a computer tests the thing. No one sits down and listens. They're more like this, some audible, but who's going to listen? 1 week of some sort of audible changes, you know. And I mean, there's certain things can easily be missed, right? Easily can be missed, you know. Nothing is perfect and never will, you know. That's normal, you know. It's just that's how manufacturing works in any industry. So, as I explained, and then when it comes out of the warranty again, then obviously the paramount basic stupid things would be tires, not changing pads, brake pads, on brake discs, on pads. Then after 5 years, perishing bushes, splitting, starting to result in excessive blade, same as on the ball joint. So basically, between 4 to 5 years, from 4 years onwards, suspension, especially if it's used daily, about 10 to 20,000 miles a year, the ball joint suspension starts wearing out, you know. And again, depends how it's used. Some cars more, some cars less. We have many speed bumps on the roads, especially every central big city, you know, has that, and that wears out shock absorbers, you know, and shock absorber dust covers, bump stops. They all perished in 5 years. Unlike most cars, like all BMWs, and for some reason their shocks are weak, especially the front ones. Engine mountings, you know, engine mounts. You know, then obviously you got some odd oil leaks, you know, which been overlooked again, not being monitored, and somehow not being rectified within warranty periods, you know. Or there has been some repairs, and again, when it's going into the service, and especially if you don't take it to main dealer or even do, some smokes they will just blink an eye, you know, and then if there is some sort of misting or already some sort of leak developing, whoever's gonna get this car on 8th year or 10th year, they're gonna get these problems which have been inherited during the lifespan and usage of this car, you know. Unfortunately, that's reality. So that's what happens. And then obviously when you got 4x4 systems, Haldex issues, they normally don't get serviced, somehow left ignored, you know. 4x4 systems, transmission oils, differential oils, you know, which is super paramount, you know. So that's why on a 4x4 cars, you know, people who own them, they're taking it to quick fit servicing or Halford, and they will not do these things, you know. They will just have a basic service. If you're not gonna follow, they're not gonna follow manufacturer specifications. They ain't gonna know on 6th year they will need to do gearbox oil, right? sometimes manufacturers updates some maintenance guides, sometimes even on some softwares the data is incorrect as well, so that's why it's important to have a good service history where when the vehicle has been taken to the main dealer, at least right, there are good quality parts fitted, at least the maintenance schedule has been followed, with good quality parts, where the human error can happen, as I explained before. Things can be overlooked unless the user complains there is an issue, right? Especially when it gets out of warranty, the repairs at the main dealer becomes very expensive, so most of the people will not even change the disc and pads, like I did on mine when I had a new car. I just bought a good disc and pads and I fitted that myself, right? So there's certain things where you can sort of save money if you want, and buy good quality parts, and compared to main dealer you will save on parts at least half price, right? But it's always it's better to pay. You can even pay get a main dealer part and ask ordinary garage to fit it. You will still save money, because the labour rate is £180 an hour at the main dealer. Well, because if you're going to fit the original parts, not substandard parts, you will avoid squeaky brakes and all this nonsense inconvenience. The pads obviously are much better compound quality, so they will last much longer. Durability, same as the brake discs, you buy substandard parts, there will be occasion squeaks, these pads will wear out quicker. Fatigue on a brake discs, they will wear out much quicker. So you in a long term, as it sounds in short term, because £500 and £280 sounds like a huge difference, but then when you will get to the point of that those manufacturer parts, original parts, OEM parts, they will last much longer than the cheap parts you fitted. That's how it would equate, right? Where initially sounds a lot of money. Sometimes you go to dentist and it says £1,000 for the crown, £1,000 for the root canal treatment, and you're just shocked. Oh, what? So there are certain ways where they try to get out the money from you. That's different, right? Where they, instead of charging you £400, they will put so other expert dentists to do root canal on a different level, right? So that means they're going to get job on second surgery, that other person will get money. It doesn't make any sense, right? So there you can just go to the right person who can do that root canal, and you will not have to pay the second dentist to do that stage 2, right? Where one person will do everything and it will cost £400, So same applies with the main dealer, where you see that things doesn't make sense, right? But that's how it is with the prices, and that's how it is with the original parts. They will last much longer, much longer compared to substandard and substandard quality cheaper parts. Anything from suspension parts in general. Buy cheap shocks, you will change them twice, maybe even 3 times, instead of buying original part and fit in. They will last longer. Yeah, it is initial cost and initial unexpected price. It is deeply unsatisfying, right? And no one wants to spend money unnecessarily on some unnecessary kind of thing. If you can only think on fixing cars is kind of unnecessary, But when it comes to the health, you just have to. You have no choice. That's your health, like teeth. You just have to. With the car, fuck it. We'll put a cheap part, right? Especially when it's gonna go for sale, cheapest car battery, like the Lion, right? I think twice a year, you know. Or at least once a year it fails, you know. Can't even hold 3-year warranty, you know? So that's what I mentioned, yeah, the oil leaks, suspension parts, and then obviously the issues which happens with the lambda sensors, NOx sensors, AdBlue, where people are stunned because the things cost a lot of money, because you don't want to put patent parts, you know, substandard parts like NOx sensors, where these problems will come back, because sometimes the manufacturer fits those and they fail, you know, and then the people start cutting corners, and the problem starts where somebody bought a car, he can't afford it, you know, can't actually afford to maintain it, and he buys an expensive car, and these items what I mentioned, AdBlues, air suspension, Range Rovers, bushes, right? Let's say Haldex units, 4x4 systems, differentials. Again, that's where people, injectors, right? Or the turbos, where you have to take the shell off of the cars. That's where you see the real life experience by owning a luxury car. When the shit hits the fan, right? And you can't afford that car, you know? And that's where people start searching for the cheapest garage, cheapest nonsense, right? They found the cheapest garage, they do the job somehow, they never probably done it, they never specialized on these things, you know, because even like you go to work for a mechanic, the best thing you specialize on one thing, one make, on one make, right? Because there's so many different problems on every make and model, you know, it's impossible to universal garage to know everything, and for them, even if you can fix it, you've never done it, it will take you much longer to diagnose it. You don't feel comfortable with this car because you've never seen this car, you never walked in it, right? And then mistakes happen, you know, incorrectly fitting things, and it fails and it leaks, and then maybe you use specific sealants, you know, which are much better for that car, you know, what manufacturers recommends, and they use some universal. That's where the oil leaks starting. Also the problems happen, you know. So that's why, and for you buying something not knowing, that's why I'm saying again, how important is to have a specialist only. They will try to always use, they might not use main dealer parts, but they use main dealer equivalent or standard parts, right? For the, let's say, if the brake disc are made by Brembo, you know, if the manufacturer uses Brembo to make the brakes, they will get the parts from Brembo, or people who distributors, right, and fit those components, which will be equal quality, right? But when you see like Quick Fit will never use main dealer parts. They will use anything which in Euro car part, and everything in Europe, what's on Euro car parts or anywhere else, they're substandard parts, mostly, because again, once you obtain a good quality part, people will not pay it. It's too expensive for them. It's just a classic thing. Now, consumer needs to understand, you know, good part and good warranty for that fitted part will it's just impossible to cut corners, right? It will just affect you later on. And when you have substandard servicing, some sort of universal auto centers, dirty, shitty places, right? You know, and then you buying something like that, or you buying a car even without the service history, you know, you just I don't know how to explain, you know, you just don't think about consequences, you know. It's even, you can have a 10-year-old car with 10 excellent main dealer service history, right? You know, and you still have to check it because it's still 10-year-old car, right? It's a still 5-year-old car. You know, you want to check if there's nothing developing potentially maybe later to make sure that main dealer serviced or specialist only service car is good, right? Because again, when people do own cars, the last thing they want to spend money is on cars. And then there's a cost cutting exercise somewhere along the line where somebody says, oh, can you do me a cheaper, can you do this? Okay, we say, look, we're not going to do this, but we'll do this cheaper, it might fail, right? So they do somehow budget together with cheaper parts, even like a specialist, and then the seller will sell this car, the keeper will sell this car. Especially that's a classic thing where car is just been sold. 3 months ago there was engine repairs, or months ago engine was rebuilt, or the CVT gearbox rebuilt. These are the things which already indicate you don't want to buy it, because somebody already been having a huge problems with this car. They just handing over these problems. I'm not saying always that's an issue. Again, where this vehicle being repaired, like I had it today, a 10-year-old cash guy. This is a sensible, very sensible car for 10 years. I mean, not say good, right? But there are maintenance issues, some oil leaks, right? But 2019, he had the engine rebuilt. The engine has been fitted by the Nissan main dealer, so that there is a good quality part fitted, right? And that's okay, because every car breaks down at some point. There is that sort of traceability who done it. But if you got some sort of auto sensor fitted second-hand engine, it's already huffing and puffing, leaking. Not change the timing belt, just to get this car rolling on wheels, and then flogging. This is what you don't want to buy. So that's why important who did these repairs. Like on a Porsche's turbos, if it's somebody just recently rebuilt something, you don't want to buy it, because you need a running time, 1 year, 1 month, 2 months of engine rebuild. You after 500 miles you do the oil change again, so there is that running period, First 6 months will be the problematic. If something gonna fail, it's gonna fail in the first 6 months of in the 12 months warranty period, So technically, if you come across something, you try to avoid it, and you wanna just something clean where you can prove it and it makes sense and it's sensible, to avoid. Sometimes you can avoid problems by knowing, and most of the people who buy these cars, they ignore the fact the car is old. They ignore the fact it's just a used car. 5 years is already old, right? Reliability of the vehicle drops by a lot, right? Oil leaks developing, injector blow-bys, potentially some turbo issues, some weaker engines like on all the minis, burning oil, blue smoke from engine, so previous history, overheating issues. If you're overheating your car, it removes the bed gasket, might start burning oil, so it's just certain, all the pipes expands when you overheat, too high pressure weakens the seals, so start pushing the oil through the plastics, then gets too hot, then you've got all the plastic housings, oil housings, coolant housings, in terms of housing, or any coupling, all this plastic terrible shite, right? Like on Range Rover it's called a coolant, but everything is plastic, and then the things start leaking, from everywhere. So, and you just, by not checking and assuming, buying things without double checking, because the seller will sell you anything, once it's sold, it's your problem. You're gonna run out like a headless chicken, by blaming the seller. He sold you a shit car, with some oil leaks, with some other problems. It's gonna be your problem. You're gonna spend, it depends how much you count, how much your time is worth, right? Per hour. You're gonna run around wasting your time they're gonna pretend like they are good. Yeah, we'll look after you, don't worry, we'll fix it. And they'll do that. They'll take it to the substandard garage. They haven't done certain things. It's gonna fail, right? And you will again have a problem. Again, you're gonna go back fixing the same thing. You know, misdiagnosis happens even with main dealers. You know, so yeah, so that's why it's important to know from who you buying. You need to know the condition, you know, of that vehicle. But most of the time, if car is sensibly looked after, obviously you have loads of like age-related refurb stuff, right? Like alloy wheels completely oxidized and it needs refurb. Again, the laser cuts, they cost £120 per piece if you want to do it. If you buy a 10-year-old car, okay, that's fine. You can't expect seller to do that unless he wants to say market value, because the sales are buy low, sell high, you know, and there's nothing you can do, you know. It's just a negotiation factor, you know. But again, you're spending $480 on 4 wheels, right? And then you realise you haven't done the service. Well, you need a timing belt, you know. So, and you bought a car without service history, you know. So it's just that there's certain processes what people do illogically because they buy emotionally, right? Because they're desperate. Because I need the new used car. But no one realizes the older the car gets, the longer it takes to find it, you know. And it's a full-time job. You're not going to find the first car and you're going to buy it, you know. People don't check if the vehicle's been accident damaged, repaired. They don't check the panels, you know. I'm not talking about just engine, just gearbox, you know. The vehicle's bodywork and underside, you know, I think is as expensive as doing engine repairs, you know, or gearbox repairs. So everything overall, you know, that's what I'm saying. You've got a 10-year-old car, it's difficult to find a good 5-year-old car, and it has problems, right? Oil leaks, blah blah blah. There's some electrical faults, engine management system faults, or any other subsystem issues, right? So you just keep spending money if you buy the correct one, the correct vehicle, because you can. At that point, it's just really the luck is protecting you, right? It just depends also how well you know information about cars. Even you can be the best mechanic if you go there, look at the car. If you don't have the right tools with you, you know, you can still buy a faulty car, you know, and not knowing from who you're buying and not checking service history. Especially if you're one of the people buying on the Facebook marketplaces because the car is cheap, I'm gonna buy it, right? Without checking. This is how people buy problems all the time, because they buy the cheapest car. They don't understand the car is investment, right? So you can't buy the cheapest car and expecting miracles, and especially not even checking what you're buying, right? You have to look at the point. You're going to keep it for years. It's an investment, right? So you can't buy cheap and then expect it's not going to break down at all. You know, and then you're going to drive it forever. You know, you should understand for what purpose you're going to use it. You know, you should understand how important is that service history. It at least it moves you to the right vehicle. You know, it's the full main dealer service history. At least there is some sort of credibility into this vehicle. You know. To have some sort of expectations from that car, you know. But buying something completely, no service history, everything is just tatty, you know, and then expected something from this car. Sometimes the decisions a consumer make is just so dumb, you know, especially if you don't have somebody to ask their opinion, especially if you don't know, you know. Everyone treats like used car market as it's cheap and I'm going in a Primark and getting some stuff and just walking out from the store. Where the result will be buying a piece of shit, basically, you know. And then complaining and pretending you have consumer rights and you as a consumer know everything, you know. So it's just everyone who bought a shit car, right, because they've been desperate, they know when they get burnt. However, obviously the vehicle can have problems, right? And extended warranty as important, right? However, you need to check which one you're buying, and extended warranty will not cover so that everything, you know. It's just at least it is a peace of mind. You need to know claim limit. You need to write in detail the wording, you know. The older the car, the less wear and tear things will be covered on it. Basically anything after 5 years, pretty much. Well, same as basically when the manufacturer's warranty will run out, nothing will be covered under wear and tear, mostly. So that's I'm talking about 60,000 miles. Some manufacturers go 3 years, 100,000. Some has 5 years. But again, everything just falls off the cliff. Year by year, you need to look on your warranty booklet. It actually covers the list. So same is when you get in an extended warranty, you know, for the used car. They will not cover oil leaks and coolant leaks and things like that unless that repair required that liquid to be replaced, right? Or that particular part to be replaced. But they will not cover any maintenance parts. Unless, like I said, it needed to be replaced because of the process. So, coming back to the faults, electrical faults, LED lights, diagnostic faults which are not apparent, you know, something disconnected like parking sensors, air conditioning doesn't work, you know, navigation doesn't work, folding mirrors doesn't work, electric mirror adjustments doesn't work, doors don't lock or unlock, electric windows don't work, right? Key blade won't lock in a door, you know, doors not opening from inside or outside, you know, which those are stupid stuff, but some people don't even check it. And that's how many times people has these issues when they sell in the cars, you know. Missing jacking tools, convenience stuff, you know, missing jack, missing spare wheel, you know, stupid stuff sometimes, you know, timing belt servicing, DSG judders, auto gearbox issues, some recently fixed things or non-fixed things, recently cleared faults, you know, certain things you don't say, you know, and then there are sellers who just take you for granted, right, will clear the faults, and you drive down the road, the light will come on, they'll start, oh sorry, we didn't know, I'm sorry, we're gonna under warranty, right? Where they clearly taking you around the bend, right? I see these people who do these things, right? You know, and then they will pretend, like I said, oh, we didn't know, sorry. Normally it doesn't happen that way. Our cars are very good, you know. And there you go. You know, vehicles never ready for sale from main dealers, smaller dealers. They can't even bother to clean them. You know, haven't even cleaned them properly. So they're never ready for so you're not going to buy the car on the same day. You know, because more likely they haven't even had to look at the vehicle. You haven't even had through the workshop, because now the times are so tight, right? Where the cash flow for businesses are crucial, you know, so they don't do anything unnecessary until somebody puts a deposit on, all right? And then they decide, oh, what we're gonna do for this guy. This is why I'm saying you need to check what you're buying, but you don't have to. Some main dealers, no one has used car standard. They have their own standard, means you will spend as less as possible as and when required, but where these things need to be done. You know, that's what the used car standard is for used car sales. They don't have a standard. You know, they would not care. They would even sell you a car from a main dealer where terrible paint job is done, you know, where you've got paint drips, leaks, fish eyes, dust marks, you know. It's just unbelievable. Where excessively worn steering wheel is the leather completely perished. They're not going to even sell you this, you know. So this is how sales are, and they will sell you anything, and then you will see some stupid stuff which is annoying, and because of the annoying, you wouldn't buy the car. You wouldn't even go to view the car if you would know you had this problem. You see what I'm saying? So don't jump on bandwagon. Don't buy the first car. If the car is 5-year-old, look at the 5 cars. If the car is 10-year-old, look at the 10 cars. If the car is 20-year-old, look at the 20 cars. Find the best one. Find the best seller. Find the best service history. Find a main dealer service history. Right? Find everything, because everyone will sell the car for the same pretty much amount of money. You need to find the car is the best value for that, let's say £10,000 or £20,000 or £100,000. The best value with the best things, with the best tires, with the best brakes, with the best interior, best exterior, you know, best, and then the terms come into place, right? Not other way around. Finding the best, cheapest car in the UK, in Scotland, right? And then not even viewing, you buying the car, and then they're bringing you the car, and the car is shite, right? There's excessive wear on there's excessive scratches, cigarette butts, you know, and seats, you know, not cleaned, not maybe serviced, you know. This is just a reality. So avoid buying cars far away. Buy locally, you know. It minimizes the issues. You can get to the seller if there's issues. You know, if you do the inspection, at least you know what condition the car is. It avoids disputes by consumer generalizes and assumes that somebody sold them a shit car, right? But you check the car, understand the condition. Cars will break down. It's a used car. New cars break down. And when your new car break down, you don't shout at the main dealer saying you sold me a shit car. No, you just book it in. They might give you a higher car, and you'll be fine. You know. So you have to have the same approach from who you buy in a car. So that's why you need the right people from who you buy. You need to check it, understand the condition. So if something do go wrong and you do put some money in on a detailer, refurbing alloys, maybe tinting windows, maybe doing something what you want, where you shouldn't be wasting money on stupidity, you know. At least when something's gonna go wrong, you're not gonna tell them you bought a shit car, you know. Hope it